Joining us now, former RNC chairman and host of MSNBC's The Weekend, Michael Steele, and the New York Times opinion columnist, David French. All right, guys, we've had a weekend to digest this. So have the American voters, and so have the pollsters. They've come back with unsurprising results. But the movement was always going to be in the margins, always among independents. Michael Steele, what do you see? How do you see this playing out?
I don't know yet. It's May, June. People are about to go on summer vacations and hopefully clean some of this out of their heads, and then they'll come back and refocus on it. That's what the problem I have with doing snapshot polling right now is that it distorts exactly where things are, because we don't know precisely where they are with voters, particularly after an event like this. Voters will digest and process this. It is important that narratives be clear and focused, that tell the story of what this moment means. And then voters will check back in after Labor Day, and they'll begin to process it in terms of the question you asked at the very beginning, Katie, which is, shall I vote for a convicted felon for office? Shall I put someone who not only has been convicted on 34 counts in this case, but has been adjudged a sexual predator in the Jean Carroll case, and has been found liable for tax evasion and fraud, and owes $250 million in fines and fees. So there's a lot for voters to process with these cases coming as they have. And I think the important thing right now is the narrative. And that clip that you showed with Trump, he gets it, he understands, which is, the analysis of that is, oh, yeah, I sat out there, lock up Hillary Clinton. Now my behind is potentially about to be locked up. So I never said that. I would never say that about someone else in political office, in political life, because he knows it's going to come back, and he thinks we haven't forgotten, which is important to play the clip.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Oh, I was there for, 100 of those rallies. He said it every single one. David, I'm going to leave that aside for now. I'm curious about, we're talking about the independent voters. You talk about a subsect of them, even the lower information voters. How does this sink in at some point? And I wonder, I'm thinking of Charlie Sykes and his words that a felony conviction clarifies the mind. Do you think it does when it comes to people who are deciding who to vote for, I don't know, in late September or late October, early November?
I think it does, but not necessarily for a decisive number of people. I mean, that's the really critical issue here is not whether it will have an impact. It will be some, but to believe that like the dam will break against Trump and he'll be swept away, that's 2016 thinking, when, there was news scandal after news scandal and everyone thought, well, finally, now it's done for him. But we realized, no, he has this rock solid base of support. But what we have seen is that support can erode. There can be chipping away and erosion. And so some of these early snapshot polls that show that tiny bit of erosion, they don't surprise me at all. But we really have to wait and see over time, because one of the realities of this race that is really interesting, and I'm not sure how this will end up cutting in November, is that Biden leads pretty well amongst people who have a history of voting recently, 2020, for example, 2016. And Trump leads by even more amongst people who have that lower propensity to vote. These are the lower information voters. A lot of these people, this might surprise some of your viewers, a lot of these people had really no clue that Trump was on trial at this moment. I mean, we're talking low information. And so one of the issues is who gets, to go to the earlier comment, who gets there first with the most on the messaging? Who actually sort of fills in that gap?
How do you see the Biden team doing with messaging? We saw him come out on Friday, the president, and before he addressed the compromise that he was putting forward for Israel and Hamas, he came out very firmly and he said, this is the way the American justice system works. He had a fair trial, and the conviction happened, that it was fair. This is normal under our American justice system. You're put on trial, and if the evidence is convincing, then you're found guilty. Is the Biden team doing a good job of this so far, at least?
Well, ideally, they shouldn't even have to raise it or mention it at all. That the fact that this is front page on every newspaper in America, this is front page when you open a news website, should be sufficient to inform the American public about what happened. But if there's one thing that we know now, that it's actually not. And so sometimes you You can't simply rely on the media to inform all of the public, because a large part of the public is tuned out from political media almost entirely. And so that means you have to sort of by blunt force break through to people. And this is uncharted territory. When have we had a situation where a president is running against a former president who was just convicted of felonies and has to make the case to the American people, don't elect a felon? This is not normal in any way, shape, or form. So we're all kind of at sea, just speculating as to what is the best course.
What's interesting when you bring that up, the people who read newspapers, who watch TV news, broadcast news, who consume digital news online from a news website, they like Biden more than they like Donald Trump. The margins that he has, those information voters they like President Biden. They're not convinced by Donald Trump. It's the social media people, the people who get their news from alternative venues. How do you cut into that, Michael Steele? I mean, I guess we're all kind of aged out of the social media world, so it's a hard question to ask us. But how do you get online and break through when what the currency online, the currency in social media are small clips and memes?
Well, it's one of the reasons why you saw Donald Trump just get on TikTok last week after railing against TikTok, wanting to shut it down and riling Republicans up about TikTok in China and all of that. Guess what Donald Trump is doing, y'all? He's doing TikTok. And the reason he's doing TikTok is he knows that that's the platform where this generation of voters that he needs. I mean, Donald Trump, like Joe Biden, needs to create a coalition because there aren't enough MAGA out there, right? There aren't enough to cobble together wins in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, et cetera. So he needs these other voters, even though they're not low information voters, more sophisticated information voters, to also look at him in a favorable light. What helps that is the billionaire class. When the billionaires decide, oh, the guy that, is suddenly back in favor, we're now throwing our money behind him, et cetera. That is another level of public leaders that people see gravitating to Trump. To David's earlier point, sort of weakens the idea of, oh, well, it can't be that bad to elect a felon as president because these guys like him. The
David,
billionaires, so it's a combination of those forces, Katie, that make this, to David's point, very, very difficult.
Let's bring that out. Is it that bad, David? Would you argue it is that bad to elect a convicted felon, especially one who was convicted for trying to influence the 2016 election, and a guy who's currently indicted for trying to overturn the 2020 election? Do you think you see these billionaires going and supporting him, transactional, obviously? Is it that bad? Is the democracy as much at risk?
It's bad. Claim? It's that bad. It's that bad. Look, let's pull back and look at this case by itself. So even if you have questions about the legality of the solid legal reasoning tying the bookkeeping fraud to another crime, which I have questions about how this is going to be handled on appeal, but the underlying facts of the case here should be totally disqualifying for any presidential candidate ever. And this is paying hush money to conceal a romantic encounter with a porn star right after your third wife has given birth to your youngest child. Like, this should end it all for him on those facts alone, much less the fraud, et cetera. But you don't even have to stop there, Katie. We go to the sexual assault finding from a jury, or a sexual abuse finding from a jury in Manhattan. We go to, he defamed the victim of his own sexual abuse. He's been found liable for fraud. I mean, it just comes and goes and goes and goes. And then we have all of these other indictments. So yes, it absolutely matters. But what we're dealing with here is a situation that I've certainly never seen in my 55 years in American politics, which is a level of devotion to one man, regardless of the facts of that man's life, unlike anything I have ever seen, that is unique. Other MAGA figures try to step forward and step in Trump's shoes, and guess what? They lose all the time. But Trump himself has this unique hold, and this is what we're fighting against. And yeah, if you're talking about a matter of should, yeah, he should be disqualified on 8, 9, 10 different grounds. But we are where we are.